Hello, good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Onyema. You're all welcome to the webinar. I don't know if we can just still give just a minute for us to have more people, or we can continue. Nancy.
Good morning, Mr. Onyema. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. I think we can start so that we don't keep people waiting. We already have a bunch of people in the room. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Onyema once again. I'm the Product Manager, Enterprise Services and Signal Alliance. You're all welcome to this webinar. The webinar we have today, we've just tailored it to our customers or organizations that are within the insurance and the pension sector. And what we are going to be looking at today is how to leverage on the analytics basically from the data we generate daily in managing the risk within the insurance sector. For every insurance and every pension PFA, what is very important to them is to be able to effectively increase their sales, through data analytics. And today I have my colleague here who will be taking us through this journey, in the person of Emmanuel Eze. Emmanuel Eze is a practice lead, data and AI in Signal Alliance. Emmanuel Eze, you have the floor right now. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Onyema. Good morning again, everyone. Yes, kindly confirm, Onyema, can you please confirm you can see my screen before I kickstart?
Sure, I can see your screen. Oh,
great. All right, thank you so much. So it's good to be here this morning, and it's wonderful to have each and every one of you join us today. And just like Onyema introduced, I am Emmanuel Eze, and I lead the data and AI team here at Signal Alliance, right? And the essence of this session is to have a talk around data analytics and how it can help businesses in the insurance and pension space to minimize risk, right? So, of course, we know we have a lot of risk that are associated with businesses, but how can we leverage on the data we generate on a daily basis to minimize or manage that risk? So first, I would go through what we have for the outline for this session. And basically, we're going to be looking at a little bit of introduction, which we just did. And after that, we're going to talk a little bit about risk, look at some things about risk controls, all of that, right? And after which, we're going to take a look at data analytics. We've been hearing data analytics. What does this even entail? And how does it benefit businesses, right? Also, we're going to look at a couple of use cases and yeah, basically to see how we can apply data analytics into our business in order to manage risk, in order to mitigate risk, in order to control a risk that is associated with our business. And of course, that's where we're going to be wrapping it up for the day. And we expect you have a fun session with us. Yeah, so right away, I'll just kickstart with risk. So when you think about risk—
Let us see your screen, please, Emmanuel. Your screen.
Oh, okay, so just a moment.
Yes, thank
you.
you.
Just to reconfirm that I am sharing my screen. Please confirm you can see my screen.
Put it in the presentation mode.
Oh, okay. Sorry, just a moment, please. How about now?
Okay, we can see it now. Yes, we can see it now. Perfect.
Great. Sorry about that. Yeah. So now we're looking at risk, right? So what comes to mind when you think about the word risk? For a lot of people, it could be personal risk, it could be organizational risk. A lot of things could come to mind when you think about risk, right? But generally, risk is that event that could cause harm or loss to an organization, to an individual, right? So you have set objectives when you're commencing your business. You have set objectives that you're set out to achieve, right? And those things that could mitigate you from achieving those objectives, these are the things you can term as business risk, right? And we also look at how, of course, if you can't quantify this, then it becomes fictional, right? So what are the ways we could easily quantify or measure this risk, right? So if it's prohibiting you from achieving your goal, it's a risk, right? And also, when we look at how we can measure this risk, we talk about the probability of it being a threat to your business, of it being a threat to your individuality, right? Also, if it proves to provide vulnerability to your assets, all of the assets you have as a business, as an individual, right? Then it's a risk. And also, we also outlined to say if the consequence, if there's a possibility, if there's a tendency that this could occur and mitigate your daily operations as a business, it's a risk. So generally, we just look at risk to be that mitigating factor that would stop you from achieving your goal as an organization. Now, we know we still have to carry out our business, and we know that there is the concept of risk. So the next thing that comes to mind is controls, right? So we look at controls as those things that we can put in place to mitigate that risk, to minimize the risk that we can have in our businesses, right? Now, let's take a scenario, right? And this scenario, it's something that we come across on a daily basis. So the scenario of flying, let's look at flying and how risk is associated with flying. So we're trying to start out with a general context that we can all relate to, and then we'll narrow down into our industry, into our workspace. But then looking at flying, right? We want to travel to another state, we want to travel to another country, and the first thing that comes to mind is, hey, let me book a flight, right? But somewhere in there, we know that there are risks associated with flying. Now, I'll take two risks that are associated with flying. One of them is the possibility of an accident, and another is the possibility of having a delayed flight, having to arrive your destination later than expected, right? Now, these are the risks, some of the risks, or should I say, these are the two risks that we are going to focus on with respect to flying. Now, when you think about the first one, which is an accident, right? This could lead to injury, fatal injury, or loss of life. But then, when we think about the probability of this occurring, well, it has a low probability of occurring. It's not like they don't occur, they do occur, but then the chances of it occurring is minimal, right? As against late arrival, which has to do with maybe your flight was delayed due to one reason or the other, right? Now, this is something that occurs a lot of times. Depending on how busy the environment could be, depending on some of the technical difficulties, depending on one factor or the other, flights could be delayed. But then the severity of that risk of having a delayed flight is not as severe when compared to an accident, right? But what's the probability of having a delayed flight? It's something that occurs a lot of time. Now, if you look at these two risks that we've actually talked about, there are probably controls that the airline companies have put in place for one of these risks, right? Say the one for accidents, right? So I remember the first thing that you get to see the flight attendants do just before takeoff. It's they give you instructions about how to access the lifeguard equipment that have been made available in the flight, right? So that's just a way to kind of like mitigate that risk of loss of life due to an accident, right? And if you look at a late arrival, so you have a meeting scheduled for 3 p.m. and then your flight has been delayed. And from the estimated time of arrival, you know that you'll be arriving at your destination in, say, maybe by 4 p.m., right? So you could reschedule. These are controls that you can put in place by yourself to reschedule that appointment, right? But either ways, we know that there are controls that can be put in place to mitigate the risk that is associated with flying. Now, think about this and think about your business, think about your space, be it the insurance space, be it the pension space. What risks are associated with your business? What risk, what controls are put in place, to mitigate this risk? So let's go to talk about financial services and the risk associated with financial services, right? And if you look at the number of risks, there are quite a number of risks that are associated, right? Which, of course, the business has analyzed a lot of this risk and even put measures in place in some cases. But then let's look at some of this risk. First, we have the financial risk that is associated with businesses. We have the non-financial risk, right? These are further broken down into subcategories, right? For the financial risk, you have the credit risk and you have the market risk. Because you're a business, you're into providing financial services. So in one way or the other, there are some financial risk that is associated with your business, right? It could be a borrower's risk, it could be a portfolio risk, it could be industry risk, it could be different kind of risk. And also, this risk doesn't just have to do with the financial risk alone. There's also the bit that has to do with how you run your business, where you run your business, the kind of policies that surround or that govern the places where you run your business, right? All these are non-financial risk. What if your equipment, what if your systems, what if your infrastructure is not working as it should and you have downtime? All of these are non-financial risk, but then it sums up to the kind of risk that affects your business, right? And we've also said that businesses would have considered a lot of this risk and try to put measures in place, because we know that for all of this risk, there are expected losses that are supposed to come into business, come to businesses based on risk. So at the beginning of, or should I say, at the conceptualization of businesses, we get to evaluate what are these risks that we could possibly run into, and some of them are acceptable, right? So you have some credit rates in the form that say maybe a customer does not renew their policy, or should I say a customer does not remit their pension as when due, right? So this is something that it's expected in some cases, although we plan to mitigate it, but regardless, it's still some sort of expected risk, right? Or should I say it's still some sort of expected loss, rather. So you could also look at some unexpected losses, right? There are also some things that could happen within the business or could happen within the economy that is unexpected. So these are things that could affect the business and lead to some losses. We also have the stress losses, which is, should I say, the ones that they happen rarely, but they still happen. Say, for instance, the financial market crisis. This is something that has a global effect on all businesses. So this is what the way we categorize to be a stress loss. So what we're trying to say is, yes, we run a business, and we always have in mind that there are different risks associated with our business. We could lead to losses. Some are expected, some are unexpected, and some could be as a result of stress losses. But then, knowing that risks are associated with business, we try to outline some of the costs of this risk to businesses, right? So if you get to experience the setbacks that are brought by this risk, what are those costs that it could have on the business? You could have a situation where your customers are beginning to complain of poor satisfaction in service, right? Maybe because a bit of your, or maybe you're experiencing some bit of non-financial risk that could be operational risk in this case, right? So this could lead to, say, poor satisfaction of customers. It could also lead to a customer exit, right? So your customers are maybe not getting as much satisfaction. Some customers would stay with the expectation that, okay, things are going to get better due to the communications that have been put out there to the customers, right? But then some other customers would want their service at the snap of their fingers, so they would probably have to exit. You could also get into the situation where you have credit risk, right? And of course, high operation cost is something that could also be of impact to businesses because we didn't plan for this ahead of time. So you could have a situation where the amount or the finances that you're using to run your business increases significantly because some things are not as they should be, right? And ultimately, say for instance, you have a situation where 20 employees just decide to up and leave. This could lead to, in some cases, business disruption. Like the business could suffer a lot of setbacks because of that, right? And this is still a risk that is associated with, well, not just businesses in the pension and insurance industry, but all businesses, right? So the key question is, are these risks that can be mitigated? Are these risks that can be reduced, right? And that takes us to talk about data analytics. So generally, when you hear data analytics, what should come to mind? Yes, it's data. Yes, it's analytics. But together, it's just that process where you look at all of the data that you have within your business and not just have it stored there in your business, but also trying to make insight, trying to get insight, trying to make informed decisions out of this data, right? And this informed decision could be from you asking questions like, okay, within my business, what has happened in the past? What happened in the past 2 weeks? What happened in the past 4 months? What happened in the past 7 years, right? So this is a kind of, this is the part of analytics where you get to report on historic data, generally descriptive analytics, right? You could also have situations where you're experiencing some sort of irregular trends, and then you get to ask more questions about those events. This is where you do more like a deep dive into that trend or that abnormality that you find within your business, right? So this is where we use diagnostics analytics to answer those kind of questions of why did it happen? But of course, the world is evolving today, and our customers' needs are also evolving with it. So what that means is that customers want services at the snap of their fingers. Customers want those services right away. So what it translates to as a business is that you need to even think ahead. You need to start asking those questions of things that are likely going to happen in the future. What are those? Who are those customers that are going to want a different kind of service? Who are those customers that are going to have the thought of leaving us by next month, right? It brings you to ask those kind of questions of how can, what will happen in the future, right? And also, not just leaving it there at what will happen. We can also go ahead and ask more questions, like set targets to say, hey, this is what I want to achieve. How can I use analytics to make this happen? You know, that's where prescriptive analytics comes into play to enable you to ask those questions of how can you make it happen? How can I achieve a revenue of X amount what infrastructure do I need to put in place, and in what strategic location do I need to put those infrastructures in place in order to achieve X amount. Yeah, and generally, these are some of the questions or some of the insights that analytics brings to our fingertips, right? Because at the end of the day, data analytics is simply using tools and technology to turn raw data into insights. Insights, not just turning it into insights, but then it should enable decision makers to take those decisions that will drive the business forward. Now, let's look at some of the benefits that we've highlighted for data analytics, right? So generally, we are saying it helps businesses to identify trends and potential risk, right? So when you're analyzing your data, when you're getting data from the different sources, from your business application, from your CRM system, from your ERP system, like from all of the different sources that you could possibly generate data from. When you're getting data from all of these sources, you can be able to identify trends and see potential risks in the business even before they happen. Also, it enables you to provide tailored services to your customers, because we know that we have a lot of customers, despite male and female, but then these customers vary with respect to a lot of variables. So you could have customers that have a certain preference, also have customers that prefer, like generally having different segments of customers that are categorized by different characteristics. And we need to provide our service as a business to all of these customers in the way that it suits them, right? So data analytics would enable us to achieve that tailored service to customers, whether by segmentation or personalization of service. This is what part of the things that data analytics would enable us to achieve. But then as a business, we still need to look ahead, right? And when we're making decisions, yes, we're making decisions based on the data we have currently, based on things that have happened in the past, but we still need to be able to forecast, right? Plan ahead for our business. So basically, data analytics would also enable us to forecast accurately and make informed decisions based on the information that we have. So because the data tells a lot of stories, and part of the story it can tell you is using what happened historically to draw a map to the future. And of course, it would help us to improve the capital efficiency of our business, right? So how much do we spend in providing services to our customers, and how much do we even make out of providing those services, right? And looking at the fact that capital expenses, it's basically that comparison between both amounts, you can be able to drive, improve on your capital efficiency based on the kind of insight you get holistically from your data. Also, for lead generation, yes, this is something that data analytics can also help us with. Yes, it can point us to the right direction for the kind of customers we want to attract, the kind of customers that we require in our business, right? And while doing that, of course, it enables us to not just generate those leads, but convert them into customers that we can maximize the lifetime value out of, right? And this is even done at in a manner that it gets to lower the operating cost of the business, because optimization is one of those things that you benefit from data analytics. So you can optimize your services, you can optimize your resources. That's basically what you can get out of data analytics. And of course, enabling business growth. So when all of these things are put in place, you'd realize that the business gets to grow significantly, right? Because you're able to look at the capabilities of your business, you're able to use the data at your disposal in order to make informed decision. And one of the use cases that you'd find around in businesses is fraudulent cases. This is something that for every financial service provider, there's always an occurrence of this, right? So part of what data analytics can also do for businesses is to reduce the occurrences of fraudulent cases, So this has happened in the past. How can I prevent it from happening in the future? I have to look at the pattern that was created by the data when it happened in the past. Use it to identify similar patterns and mitigate that from happening in the future, right? So this takes us to look at some of the use cases, industry use cases of data analytics within the financial services space, right? And if you look at what we have, it talks more around the different areas that we can be able to apply data analytics. One, for customer analytics, right? So we talked about personalization and segmentation. I want to be able to know my customers. I want to be able to provide services to my customers in the form that suits them, right? So with data analytics, you can be able to get this kind of services across to your customers, because personalization, segmentation, these are some of the things that we can be able to achieve when even providing policy underwriting services for our customers. You can be able to provide those kind of services that suit those kind of customers, right? And of course, if you look at the different products that we design internally as a business, do we just wake up one morning and say, hey, let me just design this product? Sometimes it is even more advisable to look at your customer base, look at the data that sits within you, look at the history of your data, and that should inform the kind of product you even get to design, right? So let's say, for instance, I have a product that I know that this is more susceptible to customers in the middle age, right? And I can use the data to tailor that product in a way that it would even get to attract customers from other age segmentation or other age brackets, right? So, but it still depends on the kind of information that you're able to harness from your data. Financial modeling is also something that we can get to do with data analytics, right? So when you look at your planning for your reserve, right? Planning for price model. These are a lot of things that we can get to do with data analytics. It cuts across fraud detection, risk management, credit analysis, being able to profile our customers and know customers that are well suited for what kind of service, with respect to credit, as the case may be. When we want to provide services to customers, we can get to upsell customers, we can get to cross-sell customers based on the kind of information we have and the kind of insight we can derive out of that data that we have, right? And the question that one could ask is, within my business, what are the areas I can get to apply data analytics to? Yes, we can apply it in marketing when you talk about product recommendation or customer insight, or even finding out customer churn. How many customers are likely going to stop transacting with me by 2 months' time, right? So these are some of the things that we can get to get insight from using data analytics. When it comes to sales, right, you can get sales insights, you can get information around dynamic pricing, pricing model, and lead scoring generally, so that we can know how best to apportion our resources to those leads, right? So these are some of the things that we can be able to get insights from. Yeah, so a lot of other areas that we can be able to provide, or should I say, get value from data analytics, cuts across operations, workforce, being able to plan your workforce effectively, because really, once you have a disruption in service, this affects businesses significantly. So being able to even plan ahead and make sure you have the right resources in place before any of this happens, it's actually key to sustaining businesses. So I'll just go to what we have around the pension industry. Like I mentioned, for segmentation. So part of what we can do with data analytics is to say, hey, of the customers I have, what's the distribution of these customers with respect to the fund type of all of these customers, right? I want to even see the behavior. I want to see the patterns that are lying deep within the fund types of these customers. I want to be able to determine the rating factor that would enable me to classify these customers effectively, right? And while we're doing this, it gets us to see patterns that lie within the data. You can get to see historical information based on all of the transactions performed by these customers, right? With respect to the remittances that are done for these customers, with respect to benefits that are associated with these customers. Part of the research that is even being done in this case is looking at data with data analytics. Businesses are beginning to look at customer profile, right? Being able to even tell customers that are going to retire with, should I say, terminal illnesses. These are some things that can actually be determined with data analytics, because of course every customer has DNA hidden within their data, right? So while we're analyzing this data, we're getting to see patterns of all of these within customers' information. And of course, this would help us to provide proactive offers or make proactive moves towards customers, provide services to customers even before the customers realize they need these services, right? And of course, if you look at the value that we get out of our customers, it still depends on the relationship of our fund managers to our customers. So with not just managing customer data alone, not just managing the way we get to use the insight we get out of customers, we can also look at the relationship between our fund managers and the customers, because that relationship basically is what is part of what promotes customer loyalty to our business, right? So you can use data analytics to generally make recommendations to recommendations or selection for fund managers that are associated with accounts, right? And at the end of the day, what we strive to achieve is to have like a personalized experience for customers. So when you're providing services to customers, it's based on what the customers need, looking at what the customer tends towards, based on the information you have. And this is what enables us to develop experience rating models, right? So basically, you get to use all of these informations that are gathered from the different points, different data sources, the behavior of your customers, and then develop models that you can use to even rate new incoming customers, right? And if we also look at the, if we also look at the insurance space, right? Of course, designing pricing model, it's part of what we can be able to utilize data analytics for, and also preventing fraudulent claims. So a lot of times you get to see this bit of fraudulent claims that occur, not just in this part of the world, all around the world, right? And a lot of businesses even get to, should I say, so let me put it this way. So the big ticket claims, they're difficult to forge, perhaps, right? But then if you look at all of the small ticket claims, these are where we even have a lot of problems around. So you have a $200 claim, right? And you realize that even the time it's going to take the business to investigate some of these claims might even be more expensive than the claim itself, right? So having a system in place that can even checkmate some of these things, get to evaluate, get to basically analyze the information that is being provided and tell you to a reasonable extent what that category of claim falls into, whether it's extending towards a fraudulent claim, so that you can be able to know how best to handle it. That's part of the benefits that we can get from having analytics in place, right? Developing loss. Yes, please.
We have somebody raising his hand, Mr. Oyema.
Oh, great.
Please go ahead.
Okay, Emmanuel, please, can we see if people have a bit of some questions so that we can tell them? If you have any question, you can drop it on the chat box based on the use cases Emmanuel has, been highlighting here and within the pension industry. Now he's looking at the use cases in the insurance industry. Please, if you have questions in whichever sector, please kindly drop those questions in the chat box here so that we can actually take it. We want it to be, a bit, lively and interactive also. So please, and feel free to drop your question anytime, and Emmanuel will be ready to take it up. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Onyema. And yes, your questions are welcomed. We would attend to them as soon as we get them. So please feel free to let us know. Okay, so the next item I was going to talk about is the part where we apply analytics in determining when customers are likely going to stop transacting with us, or customers are likely going to default on policy renewal. Basically, these are some of the benefits that we can derive from having analytics in place. Okay, okay. So I thought somebody had something to say. Okay, fine. Yeah. So like I mentioned, these are some of the benefits that we get to. Sorry. If we have a question, we can raise our questions. But please, if we're not having a question at the moment, we can just be on mute. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, basically using data analytics for churn prediction, for policy default prediction, right? So we can be able to know customers that are likely to a reasonable, or should I say, to a reasonable percentage of probability of likelihood, rather, or to a high probability, what customers are likely going to stop transacting with us, what customers are likely not going to renew their policies, what customers are likely going to file for multiple claims, right? These are some of the things that we can get to utilize data analytics for. And of course, the experience rating. Yes, this is also something that is that can be done in the insurance space as well, in order to be able to provide personalized service based on previous experiences from customers. More like having a knowledge base of experiences from customers and using that to provide better services to the entire customers you have, right? And of course, designing a customer engagement plan is also something that you can actually utilize data analytics for within the space, right? So when you're engaging your customers, when you're having this tailored engagement with your customers, then you can be able to pass the right information to the right set of customers. Some information are meant for all of your customer base, whereas some information are meant to be distributed to just a selected set of customers. And how are you able to even keep track of these changes within customer demography and be able to adjust this communication to fit those customers, right? So this is also something that analytics can help us to do, right? So yeah, I'll just go to some of the use cases that we have around HR. Yeah, so because like we mentioned, the non-financial risk that is associated with our business has to do with how we run our business, the processes, the people in place to run our business, right? So analytics, which is, HR, which is something that you would find both in the insurance space, the pension space, all businesses, right? We can be able to apply analytics in order to get hiring managers to plan ahead, right? So I have a workforce of, say, maybe 2,000 customers. And out of these 2,000 customers, say maybe 20 of them are in the IT department. And one morning, 15 of them just decide to leave the organization. Like, it just happens, right? Could this have been something that we could have foreseen or we could have planned against? Right, so this is also the kind of insights that we can be able to get. This is where analytics is applied to HR, the HR space, right? And also building campaign plans, building communication plans around engaging internally, engaging externally. This is something that analytics can also advise, right? So I would give you a classic scenario. So imagine getting campaigns as an end user customer. Imagine getting campaigns that the last time you required that kind of service, say maybe for a particular type of service, the last time you required that type of service was like, say, 10 years ago, right? So, but then with analytics, you can be able to carefully design these campaigns that are sent out to customers, and this would cut down the amount of the cost in creating all of this, or in providing all of these communications or campaigns to customers. Is going to cut down that cost because you're not sending those campaigns to customers that do not require it. And if you talk about workforce planning, yeah, it helps you to not just mitigate the risk of having employees leave your organization, but also helping you to develop your workforce in-house, right, in order to promote retention within the organization, because you have a dashboard that analytics provides, a dashboard where you can get to see all of your customers' behavior, you can get to see the trends and patterns within your within your employees, right? So you get more like a 360-degree view of your workforce, and it gives you insight to all of those possibilities that could happen within your organization as it relates to your workforce. And some of the use cases that you would have businesses ask, because like we said, analytics get to answer some of the questions that we ask as a business, right? And a particular question that you could ask is to say, which of our customers would default on their expected transactions or policy renewal, right? So maybe like we're currently in June, and then we want to know which customers would default in this for July or August, right? How can we get to use analytics to achieve this? Or even another question could be, how many C-level employees are likely to exit the company by next month, right? So this is another question that you could ask with, or you could throw to analytics. Or maybe even which new acquisitions, right? So we go out there to acquire new customers on a daily basis, right? So out of these new customers that we acquire, which of them are likely going to file for multiple claims within a year, right? So this is a key question that you might want to ask as a business. Or even which of our customers above the age of 55 is likely to have a terminal illness. These are some of the, just having that question thrown out there could help decision makers make a lot of decisions that would drive the business, right? So given these different use cases, we tried to build a scenario using some of these questions that businesses would get to ask, right? Now, take for instance, out of any of these use cases, you have the data of your customers, you have the data, you have the business data coming from multiple systems, you have all of that, right? And then that gives you information about your customers. And say, for instance, these are your customers. The little dots you have on the screen, let's take, for instance, that those are your customers, right? These are all people with different demographics, with different behavior patterns. And you begin to ask those kind of questions. How many of these customers are likely going to default on transactions? How many of these customers are likely going to not renew a policy or are likely going to leave the organization? So regardless of the use case, whether in HR, whether in pension, whether in insurance, those key questions, you'd get to address them using the data of those customers. And for instance, we decide to throw answers to those questions using 3 different parameters. Say maybe, for instance, we're using one of the parameters that we're getting to use is education, the education level of these customers. Does it in any way tell us anything about this customer's behavior, or maybe even the income level of these customers, right? Can we be able to see any pattern between the income and education as it relates to the behavior of these customers, or even the age of these customers, right? So if you look at it, we have a lot of variables that we could also analyze our customer information with. But then we're going to stick to these three so as to not make this exercise any more complex than it should be. So with this information, I begin to analyze my customer information, right? I begin to see the segmentation of these customers. I have customers with low or moderate income and are young. I have customers with high income, but then they have low or moderate education level. I have customers with
Hello, Emmanuel.
yes,
There is someone raising his hand up.
Oh, okay.
I don't know whether he can type his questions than Timothy, Mr. Timothy. Don't know if you can type your question. You can see your hands up.
Okay. So yeah, we can take the question if we have a question. But yeah, as soon as we have that, we're going to address the question. Yeah, so let me just proceed while that is being done. So with respect to this demography, right, you'd see that we have a different segmentation, different intersection of customer behaviors, right? So you have customers. Perhaps if you think about all of this distribution of customers, all the customers you have within your customer base would fall somewhere within this segmentation of customers, right? And these are some of the information that we get to put together, look at patterns that correlate within this information and the behavior of the customers with respect to the business goal, with respect to that risk that we're trying to mitigate. Say, for instance, we're trying to look at customers that are not going to renew their policies. We're trying to look for customers that are going to file for multiple claims, for instance, right? All of this information, we get to pick this information and pass them through models, right? And let me just note here that I'm using age, education, income, but then these models can accommodate a lot of variables. It could be say maybe the color of the car owned by the individual. It could be the gender of this individual. It could be the location of this individual. It could be the buying habits of this individual, right? It could be some of the health metrics. Say, for instance, I know some businesses would even go to the point of even collecting health data, right? So you have, these days, we have Fitbits that customers can put on, and we can be able to measure a lot of matrices about these customers. We can be able to gather all of that information and then pass them through models that would give us the likelihood of that customer being a risk to our business or not, right? So, of course, this process, there are quite a number of things that get to happen, in the background, things like exploring the data to see these patterns within the data, having to prepare the data. In most cases, we're collecting this data from multiple systems, right? So we might have to do a bit of data preparation, analyze and transform this data where need be, right? And we begin to train these models, like we mentioned, we begin to train these models with previous customer history, right? So looking at things that have happened in the past, we get to train this model to be able to recognize and identify patterns within customer data, so that by the time I get to deploy this model, in real time, it can be able to give me some of this information or some of this classification of customers as to whether they are a risk to my business or not. And I can apportion the appropriate measure. I can assign the appropriate measure to be taken with respect to mitigating that risk. Yeah. And when we talk about these models that do all of these processes, the question might be, how do we even get to trust the results that this model even provides, right? And that is where we talk about the evaluation. Evaluation is basically looking at how well the model performed. So you have all of your customer information that you're using to work on the data, and you expect that with respect to the predictions, your model would have to predict and tell you customers that are not a risk and customers that are risk, right? But having in mind that no model is 100% perfect, there could also be some situations where your model tells you that a customer is likely going to file for claim next month, whereas that customer would end up not filing for claim. The model could also tell you that a customer is not going to file for claim next month, but then the customer ends up filing for multiple claims even, right? So these are some of the things that we expect that would be attributed to the model, and then we get to use those to evaluate the model using what we call a confusion metrics. I'm not going to go too technical on this, but then we're looking at a situation where we have this number of customers, and we're saying we want to be able to predict if these customers are going to renew their policies or not. We want to predict if these customers are going to file for claim or not. We want to predict if this number of employees are going to exit the organization or not, right? And if you look at what we have on the screen, you'd see that there would come a point where there's going to be an intersection between what happens in actuality and what your model is predicting. So your model would end up telling you, okay, out of all of the customers you provided, this certain number in green are the customers that are going to renew their claims, right? But then that also conforms with actuality to say, yes, we predicted they're going to renew their claims, and when the time comes, these customers actually get to renew their claims. Also, the one in red is where we say where the model predicted these customers are not going to renew their claims, for instance, and in actuality, these customers do not renew their claims. And the other two boxes are those areas I talked about where the model can perform poorly. That is to say, instead of predicting that a customer is going to file for claim, it predicts that the customer does not file for claim, or it's where a customer that it's supposed to renew their policy does not get to renew their policy, in cases like that. But all of this is what we put together to even compute what we call the accuracy of the model, right? So that way we get to see how well our model performs, and a lot of other things that we get to consider with respect to specificity, sensitivity, that lets us know if those error areas that I spoke about, if the values they are giving to us is acceptable, or if we should rework on this model, right? So all of this is just what we get to look at to make sure that this is gives us the expected information. And looking at how technology has evolved, some of these things we get to even automate all of these processes, because we can pick all of that data, set those defined goals, and then all of those parameters are run against several models at the same time, right? And out of that, the best model, it's assigned to whatever business processes, maybe consumed through an app or consumed through whatever process that we get to build this around. And Emmanuel, like yes, please.
Okay, sorry, please. We have some questions from Mr. Timothy here. The questions are, in the analysis and model building and training, what degree of accuracy can be perceived to be acceptable in making projections or predictions for data?
Okay, thanks for that.
There are three questions. This is the first one.
Okay.
Go ahead, just answer.
Oh, okay, great. So now, with respect to the accuracy of a model, right, you would realize that when you talk about a real life scenario, there is, should I say, there is no set value to say this is the actual acceptable figure, right? You could have some models performing at 80%, you could have some models performing at 90%, you could have some models even performing as low as, say, maybe 75%, right? But some other things that we get to look at to be able to even accept those values of the model performance is the other two I mentioned, which are the specificity and the sensitivity. You know, it looks at those areas that the model predicted wrongly. How wrong was that compared to the entire data set that you're working with? Yeah, so those are some of the things that we get to consider in order to say, fine, this model, the performance of this model, maybe at 82% is even acceptable, we can work with. Yeah, so I hope that addresses your first question. Can we have the next one? Okay. Yes, Mr. Timothy. So if that addresses your question,
you very much,
please
Emmanuel.
type
the
in
second question,
the chat window.
Okay, Mr. Timothy, you can respond if that addresses your question, please.
Yes, that addresses my question. Thank you very much.
All right.
It's not addressing your question.
So can we take the next
Emmanuel.
one? Yes, please.
I think you heard him. He said he didn't address the question. I don't know, except
No,
maybe
I meant it addressed the question. Question one was answered. I am satisfied with the answer.
Okay, so please send the so now you're only expecting complete.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So he's saying it addresses his question, so we can take question two.
Okay. All right. Question two: how does one correct for biases in the data analysis phase, especially considering how training of models can greatly be affected by bias in the data?
Bias. Yes. So you see, a lot of things would contribute to bias, right? And that is with respect to the fact that when you're training in a controlled environment. But then when we go into production, that is to say, when we operationalize whatever model we are building to cater for what business processes we're trying to mitigate, right? A lot of variations could happen. So one of the things that it's advisable is to, from time to time, get to retrain that model to be able to keep up with current business variations or current variations within the data generally, right? So that's just one. Also, okay, sorry, okay. Onyema, please kindly confirm that we have enough time to address all of this, because I think we're getting more questions and we're yet to be done with the presentation. But yes, with respect to Mr. Timothy's question, having to retrain this model and also fine-tuning the model with respect, like I mentioned, the specificity, the sensitivity, these are some areas that you can get to train, right? And the good thing is that some processes that we get to build these days, it's even done across multiple models, right? So what that means is that I get to run my predictions across a number of models, and based on the best performing amongst them, I can get to pick whichever solves my use case with the best performance generally. Yeah, so I think we can still reconnect after the session, and then we can address this if it doesn't give you all of the responses that you're looking out for. Yeah, so I'll just.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe you take his last question, then the rest maybe we'll take it maybe once you're done with the next set of presentation you're doing, so that we'll make it a bit interactive also. Okay. His third question, and I think that's his last here, is how much does age and gender factor in analytics, and are there ethical? How much does age and gender affect a factor in analytics?
Yeah. I get the question. I'm looking at the question. I get that. So how much does age and gender factor in analytics, and are there ethical questions to be considered if age and gender are key factors in decision to grant claims from, well, yeah, so I think this is one question that would call for human rights, some sort of human rights conversations and all of that. I wouldn't go into that light, but yeah, let me tell you something that I actually saw firsthand, right? Based on a previous work done with a customer, we're trying to look at the behavior of customers with respect to even more like having like a credit score to customers. And you'd be surprised that for that particular customer data that we worked with, it was surprising to know that the female gender was actually outperforming the male gender with respect to credibility, to credit, assessing credit and repaying credit. But that is just one use case. And I wouldn't want to say age, gender are the key factors that determine the credit worthiness of a customer. There are a lot of other considerations that you'd have to put into place, a lot of other data points that can support that decision to be made. For instance, I could be 29, but then there are a couple of other data points that you get to use to see that or should I say, I am more credit worthy with compared to someone else who is say maybe 45 and has a duplex in Ikoyi and something like that, right? So what I'm trying to say is that age and gender are not key deciding factors with respect to whatever business use case we're trying to predict for. However, it has its own weight. There are weights that these variables, there are weights that can be associated with them depending on how you choose to consider this. So basically that's the much I can get to say about that at this point. I hope it addresses your question. If it does not, we can actually reconnect after the session or after the delivery of the session. Onyema, is there any other question you would want me to take at this point before wrapping this up?
Just go ahead. Just wrap up. Then I have three other questions. Just wrap up. Then we can take those questions. I have them here. So
Okay. Great. So now I was actually at the point where we get to train and deploy these models, right? So what you'd find out is that we previously we get to work with lots of data in order to come up with these business use cases or answers to these business use cases, right? And what that would mean is that you're working with a lot of data. You might have to retrain this data over and over again, maybe because you would have to fine-tune your process after training and all of that, right? So it could be time-consuming, it could be hectic. So part of what we do these days is to work with systems that can run that process against multiple models concurrently. So what that means is that you even have a reduction in the time it takes to even train some of these models, right? And at the end of the day, the outperforming model is what gets deployed into your environment. Yeah, so, but then I was trying to point out that even if we do a whole lot of work from the technical side and a whole lot of work generally, and at the end of the day, that information is not put out there to our decision makers or those that require those information to take necessary business decisions, then it's really of no use, right? Because you're building a model that is supposed to help the business to make informed decisions. That data should be put out there, and how best to put that data out there rather than through reporting systems, right? So at the end of the day, that information that you've predicted to say, hey, this number of customers are going to churn, this number of customers are going to default on their policy, this number of customers, this is the segmentation of customers based on the fund that they belong to, right? All of this information can be put up on a dashboard where decision makers can be able to look at this and make decisions out of it. And these dashboards are dashboards that can be automated to refresh at will, automated to refresh on schedule. You know, these are ways that we can be able to optimize our business processes, and they can be accessed from virtually every device you have: laptops, computers, tablets, mobile applications, even on platforms like Microsoft Teams, right? So these are different platforms we can be able to consume the data that we get to generate, the insights we get to generate out of this information. And another key question could be, okay, so we thought to highlight who are those key role players, or should I say, those key persons or those key roles that play a part or two in order to make all of this work, just in case we're having that question within our organizations and all of that, right? So you have actuaries, you have data scientists, you have quantitative statisticians, you have computer scientists, data engineers, risk engineers. All of these people, sometimes a combination of them, sometimes all of them, sometimes one of them, you know, they come together to help organizations to mitigate risk, right? And these are risks that can be mitigated based on the kind of information you have within your environment. And basically, I know we've said a lot, and we've actually looked at quite a number of things, but I'll just look at this from the point of view of the kind of developments that is happening within organizations, right? Because if you think about it, efficient application of data analytics would benefit an organization, you know, basically by enhanced assessment and mitigation of those emerging risks. These are risks that could just come out of nowhere. These are risks that are there, but maybe just waiting for some conditions in order to surface. You know, we can be able to assess these risks, mitigate them, and then businesses can go towards that approach of even making those, or should I say, mitigating those risks in a profitable manner, right? And I just dropped a quote that's one by Sherlock Holmes that says it is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data, because really, if you don't have the right data, how can you even make those decisions? You can have the data without information, right? But then if you don't have data, you don't even have information. Yeah, so basically that's where we're going to be wrapping this up for today. And I would take whatever questions that are left to be addressed before we close this out. And thanks for the audience. And let me see if we can address one or two questions before we wrap up. Yeah, Oyema.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Emmanuel. Thank you for the section. I think I have just one question here. Okay, the other one was just an observation. Said, in correcting anomalies in the data structure, what will be your suggestion in filling up the missing data? That's both in object and N64.
Okay. So anomalies. Okay, so basically, let me reiterate that question, right? So the question is more like asking if I have my customer data, and within that customer data, for some customers, I have age. For some other customers, I do not have their age. Say maybe a couple of customers, I don't have the age of those customers. So there are missing values there. That is the age of customers. You could also have situations where you have some other missing values, say maybe gender or whatever the case may be, right? You have missing values. How do we treat these missing values? We treat missing values differently depending on the type of data that you have, right? So for instance, if it's age, for instance. For some cases, it's advisable to use an average age distribution to fill out whatever is missing in some cases, right? For values, you could put in a 0 value in some cases because you don't want to train your model wrongly to say, okay, any customer that the account balance is 0, that customer has an account balance of 10 million, which is the average account balance of your customers. In some cases, we treat, in fact, the best I can say to that is we treat missing values differently. We treat those anomalies differently. I hope that addresses your question. So I think
Hello,
if it's, yeah, yes, please.
Okay. I think, I don't know, Mr. John, I don't know if that addressed your question. You can unmute and just respond.
Thank you very much. It
Mr. John,
addresses the question.
Okay,
all right, okay.
thank you. Yeah, and I can see another question here. This says, what are the possible Microsoft tools to build good dashboards or analytics systems to help decision making? Now, let me address this from the point of view of what you have, right? So if you have a system in place that collects and houses all of your data, say maybe a data warehouse, then perhaps all you need is just a business intelligence solution like Microsoft Power BI, right? So this is a very robust, or should I say, a very flexible BI tool that you can use to generate all sorts of insights, right? So, but then, like I said, it depends on what you have in place. You may not have that. You may not have a data warehouse in place. You may not have a singular source where a BI tool like Microsoft Power BI can go to pick all of the information. Then there could be need to consolidate all of this data into a single point and then report from that single point. So it depends on what you have within your environment. But for the dashboard bit, yes, Microsoft Power BI is a tool I would recommend.
Okay, thank you very much, Emmanuel. There is this other one. Said, thank you for the great presentation. Please state examples of those insurance dashboard presented on the presentation.
Insurance dashboards. Okay, so you could have things around claim analytics. You could have a dashboard that looks at a lot of information around claims. So the good thing about building dashboard, or what I find interesting about building dashboard, is when we look at the data, you get to look at the data and get to look at the data, and all of a sudden, the data starts talking to you. It starts giving you a lot of options of things you can represent within a dashboard, right? So you could have things ranging from, should I say, people information to financial information to resources, assets information, all represented on a dashboard. It could also be historical information. It could also be prediction information. It could also be real-time information. Say there are metrics that you're interested in monitoring and also visualizing them on the dashboard. These are things that you can actually get done. Yeah, so I hope that addresses.
Yes, I think, Mr. Olayinka, I think that addresses your question. You can unmute and respond, sir. Okay, let me take it that it addresses the question. I think Mr. Isaiah that asked the last question on the possible.
Thank you. I think that's okay. I'm okay with the response. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Isaiah now went further to say, so you first need to need a consolidated warehouse or unified source of data.
Yeah. Yes. So the reason why we usually suggest that is because you want to generate that report from a single source of truth, right? So you have a lot of business applications, you have a lot of business processes, you have a lot of data sources as a business. Yeah. So it's important to have all of that data coming from a single source so that you can be able to give that report in real time. Yeah, so yeah, having a consolidated system in place is the way to go.
Yeah, I think that is all. That's all we have here. I think that's all we have here. I don't know if there is any other question. Is there any other person who wants to ask, specifically, that couldn't type his or her question? Is there any other person, please?
Yes, I asked a question that has not been addressed.
Okay.
Okay, I asked if there is a room for internship within the organization, because I really love this presentation now, and I would love to meet this man one-on-one.
Okay, thank you for that. And yeah, with respect to that, that is I don't know if we have anyone from HR on the call. That is a response that is best provided by HR. Yeah, so mine is just
Okay,
to.
I think Mr. John, we'll get back to you on this. We have your email. We'll always get back to you on this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joko.
Yeah, so yes, I can help Mr. John. My name is Kenneth. Okay, so Signal Alliance has an internship program, but of course, it's at a certain time in the year. Okay, so we have paid internship really, but we don't have one running for now. So what you need to do is make sure you're active in your social media handles. Once you start an internship, so that you can be aware and be able to apply for one. But yes, we have an internship. Okay, but for our customers, this is just a very short meeting, trying to wrap time. You can reach out to us. We are willing and available to even come have these conversations with some of the business units that might find this presentation today useful. Yeah, most of the times we find out we have most of the people from IT. Okay, but if this makes sense to any one of us here, we can have further conversations with the business units, from the people in risk, from people in different aspects, and take it further. Okay, so that's that. And then, although we have based this conversation on risk management, there's also other aspects of analytics we do, things that ranges from data integrations, moving data from one platform, integrating, the kind of maybe from your core application, a whole lot of things we can do. So, but if you need that to happen, we can have a full presentation with your team where we showcase a whole lot around our data and AI offerings, especially as it pertains to the financial services here, insurance and pension fund administrators. Yeah, so thank you everyone that has made this session today. We look forward to hearing from you, demanding that we have conversations with your organization. Thank you so much.
Yes, no.
Okay, Emmanuel, if that's all, we can hand over to Nancy.
Okay, yeah, before we hand over to Nancy, I think just a couple of other questions that I can see coming up the chat window. Let me just address a couple of them quickly before we can close out. Okay, so one of them is saying, okay, yeah, how can data analytics help in a system auditing? So it depends on what you mean by system auditing, right? So, but then let me give you a classic scenario. You can be able to use data analytics, monitor systems real time, and take preemptive actions based on the information, based on some of the criteria set. It's like saying when I experience, depending on what you're measuring, depending on what you're monitoring, you can set flags, you can set triggers, that are initiated based on the results out of your analytics process, right? So these are, that is just to give the response in a broader view. But yeah, it depends on what aspect of system auditing you refer to. Also, I can see another one that says, can data analytics help in mitigating risk in insurance company? Definitely it can. Depending on the type of risk that you're trying to address, there could be risk associated with claims, there could be risk associated with policy renewal, there could be risk associated with even the employees within the insurance company, right? So these are different ways that you can be able to use risk to use data analytics to mitigate risk, right? Even at the point of acquisition, even at the point of onboarding new customers, you can be able to profile all of those customers at the point of onboarding. Yeah, so I hope that addresses. Can you please do a presentation on V&R? Well, I'm sure our comms persons are taking note of that, and we'll definitely reach out to you once we have something around that. Yeah, I think for now, maybe we'll just wrap it on at this, and then we can reach out to every other person with additional responses to additional questions as we proceed. But thanks for being here this long. Oh, okay. I see a hand raised. Mr. Isaiah, please go ahead, please.
I think you've addressed it. I wanted to add a little bit for compliance and audits. Now, if you're using M365, there's a compliance bit that actually gives you audits. Now, it's based on data analytics. It digs into your system and extracts information and does predictions for you based on BI. So if you check that bit, I think you can get some things there as well if you're into audits.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I think I think that's all from me. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending the webinar. Thank you for making our time to be here with us. We're available for us to have one-on-one engagements with any of you, any of the organizations or any of you who attended this webinar, or you have people who you feel within the insurance space or the pension industry, that this is going to help. We are available, you also to further the conversation with those people. Our email has been shared there. You can, get in touch to us using our email. They're shared in the chat box there, marketing@signalalliance.com. Please get in touch with us. If you need us to come have a one-on-one workshop with you where we will go, much neck deep into this, we are available for that. We can come in, discuss with you, and we'll see how we can help you improve your business processes, be able to make, take decisions, that can help you mitigate most of the risk involved that are prone to your industry, whether in the insurance or the pension sector. From every one of us here, we want to say thank you for attending. Thank you for coming around. We have, the feedback form there in the chat box. Please help us fill that out. Let us know how the presentation was. Let us know the other areas you also want us to come in, and discuss with you. It could be, in other areas, data related areas. It could be non-data related also. We are available as far as it has to do with technology, also to serve your needs. From every one of us here, we thank you and God bless you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mr. Yema. Thanks, Mr. Emmanuel. That was a nice one. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Take care.
I think